No, he's coming in.
Okay, we're good. You want to just get started with that? Yeah, I do have the mics live. You do need to speak in. We are live streaming on YouTube. Just so you know, though, it can only show from Cecil to Ian. I'm sorry, Cecil to the mayor, on the YouTube. I'm not going to adjust the cameras back and forth. So, just so you're aware of that. And I've asked these guys if they're going to say anything to go to the podium to say something. So, for Public Works, manager's update, all I have is reminders. I really don't have anything new. So unless somebody would have a question about any of that, that's all I have.
Mr. Morris, I had a question. Do we know when the street sweeper will be arriving?
Do you have any idea, Jim?
Can we check on that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morris. Next on the agenda is the foreman's report.
I got my report for the jobs for coming up for the next month. And then the only thing that I have on there is I wanted to bring up about in the capital budget, we have $7,000 allotted for a new hot water pressure steam Jenny machine. Our old one was about 24 years old and it finally blew up. So I'm requesting you folks to give us permission to purchase a new one. Does anybody have any questions about anything on my report at all? We need to take a vote on that now?
Take a vote on that.
Yes. Oh. Okay, thank you. Sure. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thielacker. Next, we have the engineer's report.
Yes, good evening. A few items to update the board on. The road tables included. We're doing preliminary measurements right now for the road list. Please let us know if anything changes on that list, and we can add it to the what we're looking at in the field. The largest item right now that we're working on is the Ardmore Boulevard Avenue A storm repair. I laid in front of everybody this drawing for this evening, and currently project's designed, ready to go to bid. We do want on next week's agenda authorization to advertise to put the part in yellow out to bid. You'll see at the top of the page, Avenue A, there's a manhole and then there's a storm run. I highlighted in yellow that comes down to a catch basin right along at Ardmore Boulevard. You can see we're moving the storm sewer out into the roadway. Currently, it runs very close to that existing house. So we're going to move it out into the roadway and come down basically to the left side of the steps that were there. Starting green, we're doing an emergency repair right now on that section. You have a contractor come in this week. There's a tree that they took down right now. The reason for that is that section is clogged with roots, and there's no access to where it turns along Route 30 and goes to, if you're looking at your page to the right, we don't have access to know if that section's working. Since it's clogged with roots, it may be in fact the reason why the pipe blew apart upstream that you now have to replace. We don't want to put a new pipe in and then have a problem with it because there's nowhere to discharge it. So the water runs out on the 30 right now. So they're going to put a catch basin in and replace 15 foot of pipe and put a manhole in. That manhole will give us access to televise the pipe along Route 30. At last week, I did a tour of a number of areas that we had issues with throughout the borough. And one of our concerns is if you go downstream of, along the retaining wall, you'll see where there's water running out of a catch basin that PennDOT worked on during the Route 30 project. You've had complaints about that. We've even got complaints from the district. So Jim's been trying to open that catch basin. We're concerned that maybe your pipe got damaged that's behind the curb, because it runs from where we're going to install the new manhole down along the wall, and then it goes under 30 and connects into a culvert in the parking lot on the opposite side of 30. So we want to make sure that we can televise the line from this green section all the way down to where it daylights. So we make sure that your system is operating, because upstream of Avenue A, there's a large amount of catch basins and things that comes into this system. So when it doesn't work, you get a lot of water down onto 30, and it compromises your system. So step one, we want to do this emergency repair. We applied for an emergency HOP last Friday. I'm going to go in and get this work completed. I know Public Works has been assisting with a little bit of traffic control down on for the tree clear. And I know the contractor would like that to happen again. It's one of those things where if you do the traffic control, it saves the borough money. If you want the contractors to do it, they're going to hire somebody to do it, and then it'll be additional cost to the borough. So I think Jim just needs direction on if you want him to do that or not, as far as with Public Works. If they can, it does cut the price by quite a bit, because if they hire a third party, you're going to pay a few $1,000s a day probably for traffic from a third party. But once we get that done, then we'll report back. But there's no reason not to bid the upper section so you can get that price in hand. It is in the capital budget to do this project. We just want to make sure it does have a place for the water to discharge to long-term. Because it appears as though it's been a problem for a while. And then we are going to check the system along Route 30. Jimmy's crew is going to televise it to make sure that it's operational, because if something happened during the 30 project, we want to make sure PennDOT comes back and fixes the pipes if they did something during that work. There's a sanitary sewer that happened that they come back in and fix. Roughly that they dug through whenever they did that project. So there's little things like that happens. We just want to make sure who's responsible. So we'll report back to council as we go. Next is.
Before you move forward, is it okay if I ask a question? So help me understand, where do you think the blockage is actually occurring?
Right now, it's that parting green on the page right beside Route 30. That pipe's full of roots. We got to televise to that point, and it's completely clogged with roots. That elm tree? It was right over top of the pipe, and then it's filled the entire pipe with roots. So that's step one, is we took a tree down, and now we have to fix that section of pipe. It's only about 4 or 5 feet deep, so it's not real deep. We'll get that fixed, and then we can televise from that point down 30, because right now we can't get a camera through there to see, is it open? It runs up past the steps, up through that. It connects into Avenue A, yes. Avenue B right now.
Connects into B and then that connects into A, correct?
Yeah.
If we tried to televise from the other way,
Coming
Boulevard?
from the boulevard up, your pipe's behind the curb. It goes down and then it turns and goes under the highway. We'd have to televise from inside the culvert. That's why we want to put this manhole in, so we. The district system is separate. You own it. We are concerned about that, though, because when PennDOT does work, they only own the grate. Work on 30, they don't send any of the information into the borough to review. So I've requested plans from PennDOT to see what they actually did. Pipes they put in, what did they repair? Curb sections, borough zone, the pipes under the. They, when water was running on 30, they call Public Works and they say, you know, you need to get your system open because it's the borough system then whenever it's not working, so. Very unique situation in Pennsylvania. Other questions on that one?
Yeah, sorry, I have one more follow-up question. I apologize. How do we, so with regards to the root damage, right? I guess that's one aspect of it, but like if there's perhaps blockage along the pipe in 30, like how do we know that some of the work that wasn't done summer during the repair work, that there could have been damage done at that point and just.
That's what the sanitary sewer, they first said they. Public Works did the investigation and we found gravel in a pipe and the pipe was broke. So they can have that situation here. We'll do the same thing. We'll notify the PennDOT. Had two different contractors. That was the only difficulty. They did figure it out, so.
Do we routinely send inspectors out when people are doing this kind of work, Jim, just to make?
District does do the inspection, but more and more we ask for them to send the plans to the borough.
Turn is that half the time when the district comes up to do the inspection. This is kind of where I kind of get a little concerned because now we're going to end up bearing the cost on this potentially, right?
For the first section, definitely, because that piece is your pipe. Rest of it, depending on what the issue is.
Sorry for all the questions. I just wanted to make sure I had my arms around this. I apologize.
So good. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Watkins, may I ask a question?
Certainly.
Mr. Brett, on the traffic control, you said it would be costly, or you have an estimate, or can you get us an estimate of
Yeah,
what that would cost?
We use somebody for traffic control. Municipalities can't do it for entering sewer manholes. It's somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 a day.
And that's for 8 hours?
Basically, two people, all will sign each, and then if they need a message. It's something to consider. A little bit of cost savings there. Any other questions on that?
You said a little bit of cost savings. Is that if
If Public Works does the work.
Public Works does it?
Yeah, because you already have the crew there, and this is daytime work.
Mr.
Any
Watkins,
other? Yeah.
yeah, just to point out that it's not free for Public Works to do it
No.
either. So we'd have to look at the what the offset would be.
Next is Watt Lane trash rack. There's trash rackets needed from that project, keep debris from clogging the pipe you put in last year. It's in the capital budget. We're getting pricing on that now. The next item. You had on the agenda for Three Rivers update. I give you two items that we're currently working on. Your 10% reduction project from the consent order is due in September. So we're currently working on that. Simultaneous with that, because you can take credit for some of these, is the Elkasand regionalization. You got a report last year indicating that the repairs had not been completed. In the capital budget, we put some of that work to be completed this year, and then the rest of it would be next year. Although we did apply, we were on a call with Elkasand, and they have a Grow Grant program that you can apply for. First for repairs that you completed, And they have, your project has a name. There's two sections that, they've actually named. So when they name something, that means there's interest from Alcoasand, in the project. And it's about flow reduction, how much flow you can take out of the system. So we did apply for, because you only get like 25 to 50%. We did apply for a GROW grant, on your behalf. That's to send in just a letter of intent. And if it's a project that they, think can grow legs, then they'll notify you that, yes, in fact, you're going to spend the money anyway. But if we can get you reimbursed for that back into your sewer fund, it's very good. We've been successful getting millions of dollars back in for the communities. A little bit at a time. You may get 250 for one project and then 250 for another, but if you can get 250,000 on money that you're already spending, that's a good thing. So it's a unique program. It's very engineering based because you have to prove that you actually, the project flow out of the system. But you have things on here that's going to do that. So that proved fairly easy to do. So that went in. We should hear over the next 2 months whether or not they say yes. They could call next week and yes, go ahead and go to the next step. Well, you're already working on the next step because you have to do these plans. You'll be well on your way. We're just hoping we can get you. We'll keep you updated on that. And then next year you have to build your 10% reduction project. Next round of grants, we'll work closely with her. Here's what we see for infrastructure stuff. And we'll give her all the meat cost estimates because again, you already have them because it's projects you have to do. She just needs. There's going to be a lot of money come this year for shovel ready stuff because the ARPA money has to be spent by 25, 26. Project that we can go ahead and apply for a grant. So stay tuned on those, but I think there'll be quite a few of those coming out.
I have one other question.
Just what you just mentioned with Maureen and grant writing. I think it's our intent. If you feel like she will help you, we can use her. But if you feel like it's a easy copy and paste, you wrote the same grant for someone else and you just need to copy and paste, then you should just do it by yourself. Whatever you feel like Maureen can help you, she doesn't have to do all the grants. Because I have the feeling lots of your grants are like routine copy and paste stuff for you. You should keep doing that.
Mr. Watkins, I'd like to comment on that as well. There's a little more to it than that. I think we should stick with Maureen as is. And talk with her. There's more to it.
I just want to duplicate the.
No, I understand.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we're coordinated.
I didn't know that she had already spoken with you.
I spoke with her about the band shell and I just mentioned to her about the GROW grant. She actually hadn't heard about it. I knew you appointed her and I just said
Yes, thank you.
there's definitely stuff that together we can get a lot of good work done. So next.
When you want to talk about it, I didn't get it. I feel like we agreed that when you said you want to talk about it later, when do you want to talk about it? Like, I feel like we're not on the same page, or at least that's what I thought.
The same page as what?
Like, I thought Maureen will do grants which are not related to him, or grants like LSSE is not already working on anyway. You know what I
Well,
mean?
my understanding was we were going to consult with her on both. Because my understanding is grants aren't just what you write. It's, there might be some political influence on that.
I just want to make sure we don't do the same thing twice.
We work with other ones similar, so it'll work very well. So I'm not concerned on that. Next is sewer rates. We're pretty well through the sewer rate analysis. That'll come out before the next committee meeting in draft. Everybody to the group. Feel free once you get it, if there's questions, to fire them out to me so I have time to digest them. of doing it in this form, I can answer questions. It'll be quite a bit of information, so please feel free to ask me any questions. You did receive some grants and we are working through scopes on those projects. Ashley Court got funded. It is a project for a lining project that was identified. That project will be put out to bid here over the next couple months. Any other questions?
You've got an amount for the Ashley Court grant. What, can you give us an estimate on the other grants that have come through?
You have the Ashley Court grant that came through, and then you have other ones you've applied for, you haven't heard on yet.
Was Ashley Court the only grant that's come through so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was in the last round of funding, so.
No other questions? All right, ladies and gentlemen, the rest of the report for Public Works is in the agenda for your perusal. We can move on to the next.
Borough property is next.
Absolutely. If I may just preface this is my first time going through this process. So please, if I am out of order or needing some sort of pause to discuss things, please feel free to get my attention. Or
Anybody's ever out of order, so. no. Manager's update for borough property. I have two items. First, we're still upgrading different things in the borough building, and with the end of the pandemic, I just want to let you know that we're going to be putting the lobby back into the way it had been. Except we are using the building fund to get some of the furniture that we had talked. So that is on order and will be coming, and I also plan on returning the monitors there to what they had been before. One monitor that was supposed to be the dashboard that showed the energy usage. I know they're still thinking about trying to get that running, by the way, but right now that's. So we'll be putting that back on shortly so that whenever people come in, upcoming announcements and things like that, and look at anything that's on those screens. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I just had a comment, Mr. Morris. A while back, when we were meeting with Siemens, Mayor Porco had requested perhaps we could have one of those would indicate our savings, our energy savings. And I did bring that up to Siemens, and perhaps we could incorporate that into one of the screens when they're ready.
The left screen was supposed to be for that. And because they weren't able to figure it out from the beginning, slideshow on there about how the building was constructed.
Thank you.
The second item is about the geothermal system here, and this is still up in the air, so there is nothing certain yet on it, but we did have McCamish here working. They're the ones who service the system. Because we had a problem with the valve in one of the furnaces. And we found that it was bad because there was a buildup of rust there. We're investigating this further, but preliminarily they looked at it and said it may be because of the kind of fluid we're using in the system, causing the iron parts of the system to rust. Now, I believe I'm correct in saying that I don't think the wells are iron. I believe that's all PVC going. Good news, of course, but we're investigating that. I also contacted the architect, told him I wanted the engineer who designed this to touch with us. so that we can figure out what's going on. At the same time, McCamish is, discussing that with his superior to try to determine if something can be changed to stop this. But there are pieces of, the system in the, mechanical room behind the Public Works garage that are made out of iron. And of course, some of the lines may be that take the heat or cooling from the furnace to that area could be that way too. So we're not certain yet. We'll let you know where it stands. Something we need to be aware of and work on.
If, as far as I remember, didn't Siemens change some liquids? Did they maybe change that liquid? Yeah,
Oh.
I know they changed some coolant or something in our piping.
I'll have to
But I
double check
wonder-
on that then. Do you know, Jim?
I spoke to Siemens. They said they only worked and they added coolant in. They didn't do anything that would have interrupted with the heat.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that we have a coolant in there because the wells did not go down to their normal depth. I believe if they go down to their normal depth, you just use water. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I remember reading somewhere. And because they weren't able to go down because of the mines there, we had to put in that pink fluid, that coolant fluid.
Can we also check our specs on the original building construction? I would assume that those pipes should have been galvanized. So if they were, in fact, then there should not be rust buildup. Does that sound right to you, Kevin? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but if we were using galvanized pipes, which I believe that's what the specs called for, then there shouldn't be a rust buildup whatsoever. So we need to go back and check that angle as well, because if we somehow got short shrifted on that. That's a legit.
Jimmy, could you also mention that to Phil, since I'll be out the next couple of days, just so he. And this is all preliminary, so until we find something, I would not. That yet, let's see what's going on. But you should know right from the beginning, rather than. All I have, Mr. Bacon, to report on the reminders.
Okay, thank you. Here we have the invoice from Anderson. Do we know an update from Mr. Reamer on if that is a bid that's going to be a vote coming up? For the pool caulking?
Yeah, I have that under the committee report later. And the bid he got for it, and that would be something that would have to be approved.
Okay, thank you.
You should have that attached to your agenda.
Mr. Brett, I believe this would be the point for the engineer report.
Good evening. The update on the lodge contracts. The mold remediation has been completed. And the other contractors, we've been getting shop drawings in and out on the interior renovations. And I believe they were waiting on their building permit. Once they get it, then they're to begin. Contractors, we're getting everything in place to work on the inside of the building. The outside of the building, we've been working on getting a quote from SNN for the boxing work, and I hope to have that for next week's agenda for consideration. And we did already take the bids for the HVAC and the electrical work on that. One item was the other grants that you did receive. The infrastructure, the only one was Ashley Court. You did receive through the last round of grants, the same one as Ashley was park grant. You got 210,000 for 3 different items for the park. So that was a second grant that you did get. The other contracts we have sent award letters on was the grill repairs, the pavilion and the playground. And all those contracts should be starting over. Waiting for the weather to break, but materials will start coming in on those as well. We have a little bit of coordination with Public Works whenever they come in on where to store them. I have any questions?
On the parks grant, is that separate from the item 6, the CFA Greenways Trails and Recreation Program?
Yeah, that's the grant that you got from CFA, and it was for the footbridge, pavilion, and a playground.
Okay, and I thought you mentioned another parks grant other than that?
No,
Or-
just that one.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Good deal. Thank you.
Is Mr. DeJoya here this evening? Thank you for joining us. If you could, please, I think just for the education of us new to council and those who weren't here for the beginning of this project, could you first of all, just explain kind of the general status where it stands, and then also where we stand as far as the grant coverage and the invoice that we have for the month on engineering services for the 44,912, and what the relation is between the grant and those fees.
Sure. Some of you are familiar with the project, some of you are not. I guess it was last year we applied for local share account grant. We did receive the grant last year. To this date, the grant is for construction only, not engineering. So for construction, the grant amount, if I can find out. Had a presentation I gave back in October. The total grant is grant it's 727. Yeah, exactly. Because I have what we exceeded the grant. Yeah, 727. We have nothing has been applied to that grant yet. We're in the process of, we have picked the 3 locations for steps and walkway improvements back in October. The direction was to work on the Avenue B steps, which we actually then conducted a survey. We actually surveyed all the segments, just so while we were out there, we got all the survey. And we started the design package for the Avenue B, which is basically replacement of the steps and some of the walkway down towards Ardmore Boulevard. At one point, there was talk about continuation of sidewalk on Ardmore Boulevard. That was not part of this package. Although we know it's probably necessary out there for safety concerns. The Avenue B package, we've developed it. We've got a bid package ready, almost ready. We're working with vendors on the steps themselves. It's been a little difficult finding vendors to replace, steel steps. So we're looking to do that. And at this point, I really just need some information, if anything, from Public Works, if there's any specific specifications that they want to include, but I will share the entire package before we obviously go out to bid. Package should be ready by the end of February to be bid, and we would bid that ourselves on the pen bid system. Once it's bid, because of the grant, these have to be competitively bid. So once they're bid, we'll select the contractor and authorize that work. And then this is a reimbursement grant. So the grant would apply for grant reimbursement for monies, that would apply to the grant. As I said, we haven't done anything towards the grant at this point.
A question.
Sure.
Considering we have to do all those pipe works literally a few feet away from those steps, are you concerned about any interference? Should we actually delay the Avenue B portion and start maybe Woodside or Fillmore to Sherwood first?
I know that I did hear that there were some utility or pipe issues in that area. I do not know the schedule of that. We can shift to another package and go that way if we choose to.
I'm happy to give you my plan, like you
Yeah.
will see, it's literally a few feet away. So to me, it sounds like unwise to do anything there, but I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
expert.
We have Mr. Brett too that could confirm.
Yeah.
Would recommend to start on the Fillmore down to the park and up first.
As- For the Avenue B. It would be done in 3 months? Yeah. I think by the time we advertise, and we may want to delay a little bit, but I think we could advertise and obviously make a selection for a contractor. Or till after this work is completed. And then you said, what was the other one? Woodside. There was. Is it along, it is along the walkway there? There it is. Same location, yeah. Schedule for that one, just to. Same time frame. Is there a time frame for that one, Kevin, for? The direction last time was we were gonna work Avenue B and then decide which one to go next. The concern was with escalation of costs, we wanted to watch how much grant money would be remaining. I do think we have enough, there's definitely enough to get another one started if we wanted to start another one. So you have 2 of them ready to go, and then the third we could hold until we see, where the bids are coming. Grant does not expire till 2026. Fire drill to get these done. The grant is available till 2026. So again, we're working Avenue B, trying to get that package ready to be out for bid. And then we can actually decide to go one of the other, we had the Ardwin Avenue and the Woodside were the other 2 segments we were looking at. So with that, we can kind of go, wherever you want to go.
We didn't realize that there was sewer work back then. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I think we're not, I don't think it'll affect us too much from a standpoint of getting something out to bid and getting contracts, ready to start. Again, if we have some delays on this, we can work on starting this project as needed. Is that gonna be, how deep is that? Is that gonna be cutting? Is it gonna be excavated to the pipe? On that? Oh, there it is. Got it. I mean, you have some significant work going on there.
I don't think you want to have brand new stairs next to it.
Yeah. Okay. Only thing we'll have to watch is as the work gets done, we'll have to work with if any changes have been made to topography in that area. I don't know if they're gonna change much. Questions on the,
Can you explain a little bit on what the Sharon, Fillmore section would be? Was that mostly railing improvements or?
so the share the will. Whoops, sorry. So the Sheridan Fillmore, initially, we did have another piece that went up to Barclay. Kind of helped cut that piece off. So the majority of the work in that area, again, is concrete repair, sidewalk repair, railing. Surfaces out there. So new ADA compliant rail. Get all the survey, which is done. We can kind of look at the segments and that type of work going on there.
Is the significant portion of that seems to be fairly new asphalt, is that going to be staying intact then?
That section actually goes from, there's a lot of concrete and it towards the park, it's asphalt. But and we can work with you and Public Works if they prefer to replace an asphalt. I think there's a lot of good concrete out there that can stay. So we don't. So it still has life in it. But we can work with, what surfaces we want to do.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. DeGioia? Thank you very much for your time.
You can have it.
Next, I was wondering if we could get an update from Mr. Brett on any progress or results of the pickleball court sound study, please.
We have been in contact with the company that's going to do the sound study. Questions. One is the pickleball courts back in operation currently. Second part of that is if they're not, I think we want them to do a baseline. Did reach out to them over the last week here. I'll coordinate with Walt tomorrow and just say, when are people going to be playing? When aren't they playing? So we'll pick a bad day when they're not playing and get baseline and then come back and what the difference is between normal and then whatever somebody actually is. Are they playing? Does anybody know? Warmed up, so.
Apparently they play all the time.
RFP had, they have to take them up near the residence. Well, I mean, the worst it would be is where the foliage would dampen it. We did talk about that today. We're like,
Mr. Mayor, apparently I went into the recreation board meeting and apparently people are playing well through the winter. So I'm not sure if they'd want to do both seasons just to be sure. With less leaves, there'd be a lot more noise.
Thank you.
Speaking, while we're on that topic, I wondered if I could ask a question. If it's not appropriate that I ask this now, just push me off, but as the liaison to the recreation board, I wasn't able to attend last night, but I went to the last meeting. And there's some, and maybe all of you have discussed this before already, but there's some discussion about perhaps making that a membership only court as well. Where, people would have a code to get into the courts, which would then maybe bring down some noise issues. I didn't know, where that stood, if we discuss it now, or, if that's another section.
Madam President, do you have a guideline on that? I know it has been discussed at some point.
I think we were waiting for the SON study first
Okay.
and then would decide from there.
Can I make a quick comment? A big problem we noticed, like some pickleball leagues out of town use our courts. Even like some out of town professional pickleball teachers used it. So that's why we thought, like she said, with the sound study, but we thought restricting it to truly Forest Hills residents would help to reduce the busyness. So we were thinking about magnetic cards like the tennis courts have, something like that. But we haven't done anything set in stone.
Okay. Thank
If-
you.
Yeah, if I may, I don't think the sound study is gonna really impact, that's a policy decision that I think we need to make. I think it should go, more than likely, it should be on Ian's committee for discussion, but I think part of the issue is that we have people from out of town scheduling our courts, using our courts.
Uh-huh.
And I think that we need to also discuss maybe some time restrictions around that as well, right? So I think that could all maybe be discussed in the future.
I think I'd like to set up some review of what does work with the current system at the tennis courts, with the recreation board or whatever stakeholders we deem appropriate, and come up with a decision whether we want to potentially expand that to the pickleball courts or look for a different course if we're not satisfied with that.
I believe Mr. Riemer actually looked into the costs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
he
I
did
think the
discuss
idea
that.
was it costs X and then we will charge not to make money, but like, I don't know, $40 per family. So we get the money back over 2 or 3 years. I think that was a plan. So I think he has probably some more details on that.
Okay. Any final comments on the pickleball noise study? Okay, we also had a request, I think, from Mr. Thielacker about Public Works bathroom upgrades for staff.
Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, the bathroom that we have down there is the original bathroom when the building was built. They upgraded the toilet and we replaced the urinal, but the basic structure is still the same bathroom. We'd like to put a shower in case something happens. Somebody can, something happens to one of the guys, they could jump in a shower. There is no shower facilities there now. So it's up to you folks. I don't know whether you have the money to do anything this year with it or
I
whatever.
thought we had that in the capital budget. Is that correct, Mr. Morris? I thought we did. But I think
Okay.
it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes, I've been to that restroom and it really needs to be updated. We need more than just a new toilet and a new sink. So we should try to at least get it into the 21st century.
Bacon. So any bathroom design, I assume, would be applicable to both male and female workers.
Wouldn't it be a unisex bathroom?
Well, I'm just saying that would have to be included in the design.
Yeah, we should check on what the threshold is for triggering like a comprehensive upgrade. That is probably worth it anyways. Mr. Brett, do you have any comments on that?
You're getting your steps in tonight.
That's good. I actually was at the Public Works building. Probably meets no codes. Bill, it met everything, but today, if you touch it, you're gonna have to do some upgrade. Garage and make it so you have a, 6 look at it, we can have an architect that works with us all the time, just give you a sketch and a cost.
Mr. Morris?
It's in the capital plan for 2025.
I think one other question on this would be for Mr. Thielacker. Is there any concern over, from a like chemical safety basis, that we need like a chemical, emergency shower or anything available in the meantime?
We do have like an emergency shower in the corner in there by the sink that the guy can run in and pull it and he gets water flushed on him. So we have that right now, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have one more item just as a notice to everyone that we have been offered via Connect. There's the Electrify Allegheny program that I will be applying for further information and a site visit and potentially some grant assistance for our police vehicle EV chargers. So hopefully more news on that to come. And also a request from Mayor Porco for new business.
Yes, thank you. I don't want to add to this evening's agenda, but I would like to, if we could add a topic for discussion at next month's, which is carports over the public safety vehicles parked outside. I know we had discussed this, I think, at the end of last year, and there was some discussion about with the geothermal wells being where they are, it might make the construction of a carport area difficult, but I'd like to explore some other options, perhaps with maybe tethering to like using lag bolts to kind of anchor down like maybe a lighter carport of some sort, just to keep snow and whatnot off the police vehicles out in the parking lot. I do believe we have ample funding still remaining from the building budget from original construction. That's not to say that we're going to do it, but I would like to just try and explore some different options rather than trying to anchor like 3 feet deep, which is like, I think what we normally would do. Do you think that's something that might be, you need a month or two maybe to prepare some options just for us to review and then we can discuss it further?
Going down's a problem. We've sometimes mounted them to a slab. Second slab for it to fasten to, so you have weight.
Correct.
They're like a big kite, so you just gotta put something that has enough mass to keep it from flipping over. So we can look at it. We can give you some options. We can talk to some vendors. We've looked at it before for some other. We can look at some options, see for some CoStars folks. Get some size and types, because they do come up with different products all the time. So since we lack lighter material that doesn't need so much.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that would be ideal because then, I mean, we've had some fairly mild winters, but then if we're also looking at putting maybe like a car charging port out there, I mean, I think ideally possible. So
They probably have something now that you want to put solar on them as well.
That wasn't possible.
Possible.
don't know if that's possible. That might be adding to the weight, et cetera. So maybe.
They may have new product come out that's all in one or something. So
I'm
every
not-
year there's
yeah.
something new.
I'm not trying to make this a super expensive project, but I do want to try and provide some cover. I mean, maybe extend even like the shelf life. You know what, we can maybe take a measurement out there afterward, but ideally we'd like to cover at least our parking area where the police vehicles are currently.
Like 8 cars.
Thank you very much. And then lastly, sorry, but I was in parallel track working with our state rep Abigail Salisbury around securing some funding around Charger as well. So maybe we should like chat afterwards and kind of compare notes between the two of us.
Yeah, I would like to ask, I think several of us have actually put in requests to electrify Allegheny. I would ask that everyone who has done so to please connect with me and make sure that we're not duplicating too much. Thank you. I believe that concludes borough property.
I'm sorry. Public safety up next. Mr. Boyle. Have one brief thing to mention if you're okay to start.
Well, thank you, Mr. Morris. Please go ahead.
I'm going to talk about this under Finance Committee next week, but I made it that is correctable in the fire fee budget when I doesn't change the bottom line, but I accidentally left off. Let me just backtrack. You bought the new truck, you borrowed the down payment from the bond issue, and the fire fee was to pay it back. So we were supposed to do that over several years. And so when I was playing around with the budget, I put in more money anticipated for that payment back and forgot to put in the money for the insurance, the workers' comp insurance for the firemen in the budget. Blank. Correctable, I was going to explain that under finance, but I wanted to mention it tonight under public safety since that's also questions for me. You can ask me now or wait till finance. It is.
Okay, we'll move on to the chief's report. Chief Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to report we're currently going to be receiving some funds from the state to do some additional traffic enforcement that would come in the way of buckle up and aggressive driver. And we're going to get a few roving DUI patrols as well from that. I think the sum of the money is probably close to $4,000. So it'll be a pretty substantial outlay from the state to help us do a little traffic enforcement. Most of that will probably happen on Greensburg Pike and Ardmore Boulevard, since that's usually where we try to do those things. So be prepared to see a lot of red and blue flashing lights and sirens going off, and maybe you'll have some other residents calling you about their unhappiness for being stopped. So just be prepared for all those things coming up in the near future. This is going to be all based on fairly reasonable weather. We don't really like to go out there when the weather is foul because we don't want to create an accident by doing our job out there. Some people panic when they see the lights and sirens, and we don't want to have that accident. So try to do it on those better days as best as we can. This time of year, it's a little difficult. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Next up, Chief Colella.
Good evening, everybody. I didn't have my final report done for the month because we were busy last month, 44 calls in January. So that averages out to about 1.5 calls a day. And we're 57 already for the year, being February 6th. So it's going to be a busy year again. Grants seem to be the topic of tonight. I did apply for a Scott Electric grant. So I got $6,000 from Scott Electric to buy new combustible gas meters and high voltage detectors to put on all the trucks. And we were just awarded a state fire grant, which comes out every year. It's a grant the State Fire Commissioner's Office puts out. This year, they upped it to $20,000. It goes from July 1st of 23 till June 30th of this year. We applied for the 20,000. We got 16,900. One of the requirements is to notify you that we did get it. Once I print it out, I'll give you the information on it, but we're going to use that for half of it for new gear racks to keep our gear compact and everyone, and the other half is for debt reduction. And I'm also looking at some other grants for protective clothing. Questions from council?
Do you have any updates on Chalfont? I think we're all done now. We're providing services.
Chalfont's all done. We're providing services and we've had 3 calls there already this year.
Yeah. I mean, even before you would have probably gone there anyway, but
We're answering all those calls already. For the folks that don't know, we are now contracted fire service for Chalfont. They disbanded the fire department and now they're having us do fire protection.
Thank you, Chief.
But I have just a brief question.
Still working on the Red Cross, waiting for him to get back to me. They're,
You want to explain to everybody what that's?
they're in the middle of a building move. They had to find new offices. But Mr. Watkins had asked if, we could work with, I suggested we'll work with the Red Cross, but he wants to do something with smoke detectors, smoke detector program. The Red Cross has a program. And what I'm working with, my contacts at the Red Cross, they're going to give us smoke detectors when we see a need, when we go out. They won't come out and canvass, but if we see a need when we go to a residence, and we do it now already, if we have a bad detector or something, we'll replace batteries. We carry batteries on the trucks, but they'll give us smoke detectors so we can replace bad smoke detectors. And I'm also going to work. There's a grant program through State Farm that I'm going to try to get again. We did it once before. We actually bought smoke detectors and CO detectors that we were able to go out and put some out in some of these homes that needed them. Mainly we see them when we go on a call. It's either bad batteries or bad detectors. The detector's only good for 10 years. But if we see this, especially the elderly and the people that need them, we will change them. Some folks that can go to Home Depot on their own and do it, but we won't leave a house unprotected. If we go there in the middle of the night, we'll put a new detector up and advise them, or we'll put a new battery in because they might not have one. Bring up February 15th. It's through AHN, but there'll be a veterinary clinic at the firehouse. I sent Mr. Morris a flyer on it. I think he's going to post it for us. It's on our Facebook page. But a clinic they called up, notified us, and they were looking for a place to have this clinic. It's going to be on February 15th. I'll send that out to all you so you can see.
Yeah, Chief, just as a clarification, I believe the event also includes care for the owners of the pets as well.
Yeah, it's all on the flyer.
Right.
But we have a meeting with those folks on Monday, and then they're going to discuss what they're going to do. But they're going to bring the truck in, they're bringing everything, and they're pretty much going to park it in a parking lot, use the facility for bathrooms, restrooms, and if it's bad weather, the folks can stay inside. But called us and we said, yeah, sure, anytime. We used to do the rabies clinic every other year, and it was always fun sitting watching all the pets come in. Probably be down there that day too, watching all the pets come in and getting all their vaccines. They said they're showing a need in this area that people can't get proper veterinary care. So that's why they're coming. Goes on a regular basis, and we'll have this more than once.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to, I'm sorry, the EMS report is attached to the agenda.
Chairman, these two gentlemen are here. They had an issue with some water, and they were concerned about a public safety issue on Cherry Valley. I know they've talked to Mr. Morris, and I know they've talked to Mr. Brett as well. But they were looking for some help from the borough as far as some notification because there's a problem with the water flow. It's not our water. It's mine.
Madam President, are we taking?
Yes, would you like to come up and speak, please? Just state your name and your address.
Sure. My name's Jerry Contouris. I live at 136 Cherry Valley Road. And I've been a resident there for almost 40 years. No, 41 years. And I live on the lower side. And across the street from me are two homes that when it rains, the water comes from underneath the one home and from the side of the other home and washes down onto Cherry Valley. And in fact, last 2 weeks ago when it snowed, they couldn't get the street clean because it was all freezing over. The water comes in, especially after a considerable time of rain. And if it does rain a lot, and why I am here is the water table at Cherry Valley rises. And when it does rise, I've got a small crack in my floor in my basement, and it just comes right through the crack in the floor. Doesn't come in the walls, doesn't come in anywhere else. And you can see the water pouring out of those homes. I know if you've walked Cherry Valley, you've seen the water, you see the problem. And I guess it was almost 2 years ago, Jim. Yeah, that I called the borough, and this water problem only started occurring about, I would have to say maybe 10 years ago, not quite that long. And but it's gotten worse. And so I called the borough a couple years ago, and Jim came up, and they called the Bureau of Mines. They came up and they assessed the situation, and they gave it some type of degree of urgency, and then they left. And well, it hasn't been taken care of, and I think it should be. And people across the street, it's ruined their yards. It's doing damage to their homes. They're not here because they work a lot of hours. They're younger. I'm older, I'm retired. I can come here and address the council and let them know the problem that we have on Cherry Valley. And also, when it really rains a lot, it's not only coming from those properties, but it's coming out of additional properties down the street. So it's a larger problem than just right there. Maybe you might be able to send a letter on behalf of the borough to the mining authority, asking them to, maybe move a little quicker on this, or else possibly send some engineers and really get to the bottom of it. Yes.
Water running off the hillside from the high side of.
It's mine water. The spring, there's actually Paul Kimikata that lives a couple houses up, actually diverts the water from his property coming down, and it's a waterfall at his house. But yeah, you've all probably seen that, but this is completely different. This has come seeping out of the ground.
Make a comment because I see it almost every day. And I do think it's a combination of mine and spring water because, like you said, if it rains, it gets more. If it would be just mine water, I think rain shouldn't make a difference.
Well,
Really, if it rains, it goes it's like a little river.
So I think if it's rainwater, it wouldn't be flowing 5 days later. You know what I mean? Or a week later. It's still flowing. Today was the first day that it really stopped flowing, and it's been a week since we've had rain. It's not just rainwater. It's something more. Here, when it rains, come by and look at it. You'll see it flowing down there. So I don't know if the borough, if council, if borough itself can do something to expedite getting this taken care of. I would appreciate it, that's for sure. Thank you.
I'll move on. Okay, thank you. First item, panhandling ordinance and signs. I bring that up because we did have a update on our panhandling ordinance, and we were supposed to get signs to go along with that, place at various locations on Ardmore Boulevard and in the median. And that hasn't happened. The solicitor suggested that he would like to be involved with the language on that. So I'm just bringing this up for information. I think we need to coordinate that with Public Works and the solicitor to get some of those.
Mr. Baiocchi, there is a sign at Ardmore and Yost that says no panhandling.
Supposed to be coordinated with the solicitor. No, I don't know who put that. Did we put that sign up? Right. Right. Right, we need to put some information about the ordinance and so forth and so on. So I'll make that request of the solicitor to provide us the wording for that, so, and then pass that on to you. Thank you. Next item, there's a park fencing follow-up. Mr. Erbaldinger had something he wanted to bring up at that
Actually,
regarding that.
Joe, I think you did some work, and Kevin, you did some work too. So maybe Kevin first and then Joe, I don't know.
Well, I could just tell you briefly, I got a few quotes, nothing that really works with our budget. It's basically double or more, in a different kind of fencing. But, Mr. Brett and I talked just before the meeting and we were both on the same wavelength, wondering if maybe this could be an option for us, with the pictures he's handing out now. Essentially maintaining the look of the split. What we call these
Rail.
split rail, thank you, fences, with some sort of lattice work or whatever we would call that along the way that, you know, would reinforce the protection for the children. I'm not sure, Mr. Brett, what the cost of this looks like, since this was a new option, but
Photos came from a project in Findlay Township that we did. They've had this detail for a number of years. This came in about $35 to $40 lineal foot. And then a gate was about $3,200. The gate, you kind of make it look like it's a wooden fence, but it's on a metal backing. Because you got to have strength from the metal. But it looks like. But it does. I think the second picture shows you that you do have the chain link fence attached to it. It's mostly got some type of black coating on it, but it kind of fades away because when you look at the first picture, if you're from a distance, it just looks like a normal. And when you put the fencing on the back of it, it's gives you that safety that you're looking for. So we have used it in some park settings, things like that. This is around. They basically wanted it for the same reason. They wanted to look. There wasn't just a chain link fence around.
We have an issue with wooden fences because they require maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an ongoing issue we have. We don't want any more work for Public Works than they already have. Would you give us a ballpark then, what this would be? I know you mentioned a linear foot.
Yeah, I heard different descriptions on how much fence you want. If somebody or what you wanted, whether it's entirely around the park or just one side or two sides.
We already have a quote for chain link fencing with an access gate for pedestrians and an 8-foot gate for the Public Works vehicles to get in there. And that was around $6,000. I don't know offhand. There are two measurements. One, I believe, was 90 by, don't hold me to this, I think 90 by 90 perhaps.
Okay.
And then the other was 50 by
I think I have
also
the
50
measurements
by
here.
90.
Angela.
I think it was 50 by 90, maybe. I can get you the exact
Around 400 feet
measurement.
and 300 feet then.
Again, Marcus and I discussed and with all of you too, like, is there really a need to surround the whole area, you know, moving forward, since there's some fence, for example, in Ryan Glen Park, there's a fence in the back. You know, so I don't know if that requires more discussion.
Yeah,
but-
and those fences are not our fences. So
Right.
so we can't count on those fences. So enclosing the area where the children are playing is my priority. If we go to the Forest Woodland Park, which is on the Avenue L, that not only has the street in the front, you have a stream in the back. So again, you have a toddler running out, could run out in the street, toddler could fall into the creek. They're supposed to be watched by their parents, but some parents go with 2 and 3 children, and it'd be very easy to lose sight of that child and have that, have a tragic result. So that's my concern, for surrounding at least the play area where they're playing, and that would encompass the, slides, the swings and so forth. So.
I'm kind of disagreeing with the need in the back. I agree with the need in front. Your cars are fast moving and kids can run fast. But I mean, those playgrounds are there for decades. We never ever had a problem. I mean, protecting kids from the woods and a little creek, I don't know.
And we had buildings for years and
Yes, but-
it was in 9/11 when a plane flew over the building. It never happened before. So just because something has never happened, that's not a very good argument.
My problem is if we protect those parks, where do we end up? We have the main park, which has like a little tiny wall. Do you want to put a chain link fence
Yes,
there
I
too?
do. I just didn't include that yet, but I would say
Wait till
that
next year.
the play area should be enclosed.
I mean,
We didn't include that in this particular.
I don't
program.
think Forest Hill should be known to cage kids into a play.
It's not caging children,
Okay.
Okay,
trust me.
I have one comment. I understand both sides here, but a fence that's enclosed, it's not only to protect the kids from running out, that's to protect them inside in case some dog comes up, I don't know, a rabid raccoon. You want to protect the kids in there from outside things as well. And that's my point.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the need for, a safety fence at all. I just thought that the look could be a little nicer to go with the aesthetic of our borough in general. But, it's a matter of cost. Mr. Brett, just to clarify, that 35 to 45, is that both the split rail and the chain together? Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Bacon?
I would just like to request that we have some sort of chance for a viewing of actual drawings of the areas that we're fencing so that people in the public have a chance to weigh in on this as well. I think a lot of the Ryan Glen area people are very sensitive about that park after the trees that suddenly got removed last year. And just making sure that we have full buy-in, especially from the community on this. And just personally, I really want to see the actual layouts, because including play area definition can be a pretty broad definition. I want to make sure that we're considering potential for, expanded structures in the future.
I mean, I could provide what the perimeter drawings were. And again, that enclosed the swing area and the places where the parents would be sitting and the slide and, all that sort of thing. And as far as buy-in from the public, while I agree that that is good to get comments from the public, we put safety before aesthetics. And that's my position. So we can have a discussion. It's just my opinion. There are other members here of the council, but I think we have to look at safety. That's primary. That's our major focus for wanting to protect these park areas. And if you'll talk to some of the parents that have been going down to the park that's already protected, I think they will probably give you an earful about how glad they are to have that peace of mind when they go to the park for their children. I know you're going to be dealing with that soon and taking your children to the park. So you might want to think about that as we move forward.
Mr. Bioki, one last comment.
Yes.
I guarantee you, no matter what fence goes up there, somebody isn't going to like it.
Absolutely.
Just remember that
That
going
is
forward.
true. That is true. Okay.
So where are we with this?
Well, I think Mr. Brett maybe will get a better cost for us. And if anyone else has any other fence quotes that they would like to provide, I'm sure that we would certainly like to take a look at that. And I'll get the drawings
Drawings for,
and share those out with,
can you have that for
everyone
next
else.
week?
sure, can do that. Mr. Watkins.
We talk about safety in children. Just about everybody here knows that my wife and I, we've raised 6 kids. And we take them to almost all of these parks in Forest Hills. And we just felt that it was our responsibility to watch the children. When I look at the park that's over by Morrow, the fencing we've done there, my personal opinion is that it puts a bubble around the kids. You know, they need to go down to the water and look and see if there's anything in there. They need to be able to, if it's another park, to walk up by the trees and see if there is a rabbit or a squirrel or something like that. Now, my wife has a different opinion. When we drove by, she said, "Oh, that's nice." So I come from both sides, and I think the one issue is that there may be some legal requirements that we have in terms of what is required by a borough to protect its citizens at parks.
Yes, and there are some requirements by the state too for playgrounds and to be able to enclose them and protect them. So, Mr. Lawrence?
Yeah, I'll just follow up. Guidelines for parks have changed dramatically over the decades, and the latest, as Mr. Baoki did the research, this is what we're being told to do. These things need to be fenced. And the fact is, right now that we're discussing this means we know we have a danger. So if something does happen in public, we said we didn't want to deal with it. So we no longer have the choice of not fencing. If it's pretty or not, we can figure out a nice look, but we have to act now.
Mr. Engeldinger.
I actually talked to Steve Corbell about that, and that's not correct. Like, it's not like someone tells us it's something dangerous, and then parents still have the majority of responsibility to watch their kids. It's not us. So, and again, I agree with the streets. I just think the woods and the creek, we don't need to protect that. So I think it's a compromise if we protect at least against the street or not cage kids in. Because we have many other parks, like again, the main park has a creek right next to the playground too. Do you want to put like a cage around that park? I guess you won't.
No,
Before there's more discussion on this, we've heard a lot now. Should we just take a vote?
Mr. DeCrosta, go ahead.
Mr. Thielacker, Madam President mentioned that there's a lot of upkeep for the split rails around the borough. How often are you actually like having to maintain those? And for example, in Ryan Glen, the split rail is all apart right now. There's no protection there. So I don't know exactly what happened. But I'm just as a practical point, you know, when we look into this option, you know, how much maintenance would be really looking into? Sure. Right. But even treated. So, but even treated wood would do this, right? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Eventually, you mean decade, 20 years? You said eventually it will need maintenance. Okay.
He's not an expert on this. Okay. So should we have a vote? It sounds like we're not getting anywhere on this. We've had a lot of discussion for several times.
Can I just ask a quick question, if you don't mind? I don't know that at this point, I think that there was a course of action that was decided on, which was to actually run an estimate on what the actual split rail fence is. And I think at that point, it would be appropriate to then have that discussion and then determine which is the best course of action.
Council had voted for a lower maintenance going forward.
Yep, correct. But just an FY, I mean, just a point to kind of bring up on this for consideration. I've kind of listened to council kind of go back and forth. I don't think anybody on this council is opposed to safety. And we're trying to shift this conversation to chain link equals safety, split rail doesn't. I don't think that that's the case at all. I think everybody is agreed upon there needs to be a barrier that exists to protect children. And it's just coming down to a question of aesthetics and what is a more natural fit for the community.
Cost.
And the cost, right, absolutely, right? So that's why I'm saying there's a cost associated with the approach that was just presented tonight, and we should probably hear that out. I mean, if you're gonna, you could take it to a vote, but I mean, the idea that, you know, one over another, therefore it's like a reduction in safety, I don't think that's an accurate argument, that's all I'd like to say.
I just don't want to keep going back and forth. And for the record, I would like to have this to be a beautiful iron fence with nothing but butterflies and flowers growing up. That's what I want. But you know how much that would cost? Okay? Should we move on?
Yes, thank you. I'm glad that wasn't controversial at all.
I can't wait till we get on to
I
something
gotta
big.
just say this last point. This is funny. Growing up in Forest Hills, I mean, you weren't officially a kid in Forest Hills until you fell in a creek. I mean, that was part of the deal. Anybody who had kids growing up in this borough knows that. So, we're trying to protect kids from the creek. Meanwhile, that's kind of the part of the deal when you're growing up here. Anyways.
My playground had sharp metal objects and concrete.
Yeah,
Okay, so-
you know.
Okay. Next item is the median closure at Ardmore and Fillmore. We've discussed this about the intersection. In previous council meetings, we've agreed that we wanted to close that area off for a variety of reasons. I spoke with Chief Colella, and he had some concerns, but he was agreeable to us trying this for a temporary period of maybe 60 days, see how that would work out. So I think, again, I would like to get some additional information on our various options to close that off. I think putting maybe a temporary barrier up, similar to what we did during the construction of Ardmore, would be worthwhile to give that a try. So I'd like to propose that we maybe, if we need to bring that up for a vote, bring that up for council vote. Concerned about that? No?
I
Okay,
think it's a good idea.
okay. Next item, sidewalks. We were talking about enforcement of parking on sidewalks. And I think before we can do that, we need a definition of what a sidewalk is. So I'm throwing that out, that I think we need to either work with the solicitor or with engineering to determine what our sidewalk definition is. Currently, we do not have a definition, so we need to come up with that. So if that's contiguous, walkway, and how far is that? So I'd like to bring that up with the solicitor and move forward with that at a future meeting. So anyone?
There's nothing in the ordinances defining a sidewalk?
There is very, very limited information. It doesn't specify the length or width or any of that sort of thing.
I'm wondering are any of the issues for this involving Ardmore and commercial parking, or is it purely a residential matter at this point?
Both.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and we continue to have parking on Ardmore Boulevard, contrary to what we discussed last year. So I think once we get the sidewalk definition, we'll be able to move forward with that. Last item is the review of the parking changes on Wilkins Road and Pacific Avenue. As you know, we did a change on Wilkins Road to one-way. That was 60 days, expired on February the 4th. I've received only positive comments so far on that, and there seems to be no adverse effects by changing that. I think with the, getting emergency vehicles up there too is a concern. And, I think I'm recommending that we, move forward with, making final approval of that at our next meeting. Questions, concerns for that? For Pacific Avenue, we've had a number, we changed Pacific Avenue to make it one way between Marion, moving toward Lenox. That was well received. The problem is that we made it parking on one side only. Several of the residents have been very vocal about it, and they dislike that, claiming that it reduced obviously the number of spaces, and they believe that people are speeding down the street now because of that. I think that we need to make that a permanent change as far as the one way is concerned, and as far as the parking is concerned. Mr. Lawrence had a excellent idea that gives us a compromise on the parking situation. Chief Colella stated that we needed to have space so that the fire trucks could operate safely and effectively in the event that there's an emergency. So with that in mind, Mr. Lawrence suggested that we have the parking on the opposite side where we've now restricted it to be several spaces of parking, open space for with no parking to allow at least 30 feet for the fire trucks, then parking, so forth and so on, all the way to the end. And I think that would be a good compromise. We could probably gain about 15 to 18 more parking spaces by doing that. We would need to have service identify how we would space those out and then get those lines painted to include no parking, towaway zone if we have to, and put those signs appropriately. Mr. Thulacker. Yeah. Right. Yes, and we could discuss that with engineering. So if there's no, Mr. Erveldinger.
I just would like to hear Chief Colella's opinion on that. I assume you talked to them already, but I haven't heard your opinion.
We discussed this, as a compromise. Like I said in my email that I sent earlier, that the street is 24 feet, 2 inches wide, I believe. Fire truck is 9 feet wide. That leaves us about a foot on each side. When you put a fire truck out there, the incident that we did have up there, we had to move the truck all the way to the one side, right up against the vehicles. The driver had to stay in the car so we could get the ladders off to put a ladder up to a back porch to a residence to get a elderly patient that was in a bed for 2 days till we found her, till someone wanted to do a welfare check. So that limited our space on that road. The ambulance had to park down in the alley because the fire truck was blocking the road. It limits what we do, but discussing this option, it'll give us room that we can move to one side or the other that we operate. If you look at some of the pictures I sent, we bring hoses off the sides of the fire trucks. We need more than 12 inches to be able to operate. And then other complaints going to be that we damage someone's car because we're running fire hoses against them. We might have hit them with a tool. We might have hit them with a ladder because there's no room. Yeah, we need space. This is a little bit of compromise. We have to figure out how we're going to space them and take a look at that when we do that and come to that conclusion.
Chief Colella, then you agree with this idea if it works with the engineers?
If it works, we have to look at it and see how it's going to work. But again, those houses are so close together. If one starts, you're going to get two, maybe three on either side because we have to do them. we have to get water to the fire truck. We gotta get water out. So that's all hoses and ladders. And I could put the ladder rack down on the one truck and I'm telling you, we're about 12 foot wide. So that takes up that whole space. We have to look at it and see what it looks like when we get the drawing.
Any other questions? Mr. Bacon?
Just a suggestion, that perhaps in the initial exploration of this, there be some sort of very public demonstration with a fire truck and, you know, a couple parked cars on the side. I think that would go a long ways with goodwill on this.
Okay, anyone else?
I think what we're trying to do is do something to help the residents. We are very limited what we can do, so I'm not sure of how much input we can really address. I think sometimes don't ask a question if you're not ready to deal with the answer. So I would question that.
You know, I think Ian had a good idea. I think one of the biggest complaints, so first of all, let me back up a step. We've got to enable the fire department to do their job, right? And I think everybody agrees. That's not the issue. I think the issue is that most of the residents just felt like this was quote unquote sprung on them. While we've been discussing it, they don't come to our meetings on a regular basis, right? Let's face it, residents normally only come if there's a complaint, which they did. But having them be a part of that conversation, and whether that's just email notice, flyers on post, like flyers on telephone poles, just advising them that, hey, we're kind of taking this under advisement, just to kind of make them feel like they're part of the process. That's not to say that they're going to pick and choose where we do things. That's obviously going to be, we're going to be taking direction from the people who actually have to execute the work in order to make it happen. But just having them be a part of that conversation, I think will just help ease the transition.
In that respect, all the residents were notified by letter that was occurring. So it wasn't that we just did it one day and they didn't know about it. So they did get a notice.
I'm just telling you, I mean,
I understand. And most the folks that have been very adamant about the parking is they don't want anything else. They said, just return it to the way it was, but make it one way. So I'm not sure that whatever we do will actually satisfy that, but I understand your yes, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so I would like to be able to work with the engineer on that matter. If that's okay. All right. That concludes that report.
Policy.
Go ahead, Mr. Morris.
First item, committee vacancies. I summarized there where we have vacancies first, and then noted that we did get some requests for appointment for those people whose terms are up at the end of the month. You can see that list there. New volunteers. Ms. Harris also serves on the Environmental Advisory Council, but she's interested in also doing probably if that's okay with council. And then we have alternate for Environmental Advisory and Mr. Wong. Typically, you make those appointments by motion. I'm suggesting is if you are okay with reappointing those people that are there. Also appointing the three. Office has the letters and or resumes that they provided.
Let me break it into two things. Could everyone look at the materials for Rodriguez and Watt, and we can discuss that in Cal next week. Does anyone have an objection to Patricia Harris sitting on 2 committees? Okay, nobody does, so how's that sound? Okay.
We're losing Mr. Rhodes, who retired at the end of the year. Law firms, and did get 2 responses, one from Campbell Durant, who currently serves us with police issues, police labor issues, Tucker Orangeburg. They both have data that they've sent to us about them, and I can provide that information to you. Not necessarily a rush, except of course, if you have a pension. Times when we go through month after month.
Mr. Engelbart?
If we do Campbell Durant, would we get Mike for that, or did they specify what lawyer would actually take care? You know, those
Yeah,
companies.
they specified in both proposals. Brian,
So it was not Mike, basically. Okay.
yeah, both have who they would, work with. So. And if you like, we can, I can have the proposals ready for you. Up to you how you want to proceed with that, whether or not you want to talk about an exec session first. I don't have a recommendation either way.
We can say you don't have a particular recommendation one way.
I don't think you need to move on it immediately. Wouldn't hurt to have it ready, have something done though, at least by the March meeting, if not earlier.
Let's do that. Or if we can get it handled in Cal next week, let's do it. I mean, why sit on it?
Last items I have, or you could read their.
Thank you very much. Let's see, a software status update. I think that's Mr. Baoki, right?
Yes, just to bring everybody up to date. We've been, several of us, Madam President, myself, and we've been working with Mr. Reamer on the facility rental software. That's coming along. We're hoping to go live with that sometime in March, in time for the onslaught of rentals that will be coming up this year. It will be online, totally automated, and we're looking forward to getting that resolved and finished. We have asset management software that we've been working with. Part of that is a work order program. We aren't ready to roll out the work order program as of yet, but the asset management is coming along quite nicely. We have someone working, gathering all that information and doing the documentation. Those assets will be barcoded as well. So when we have to do an inventory management, it'll be much easier. We have document management software that's being rolled out. The office staff, for particularly the treasurer's office, is using that and getting familiar with that. So that's going to improve the efficiencies in the office. We, as a council, will be using new software. The IT management team has moved everyone over to Microsoft 365. So there'll be an upgrade. If you haven't already upgraded your email, you will be getting a call or training on that. And finally, website redesign that's been completed. And hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll be rolling that out.
I tried to call the IT support yesterday as Annette instructed. No answer, caught in a voicemail loop, left messages, no one's calling us back.
Yeah, that loop is actually, if you I know it's weird. It keeps repeating. If you would have stayed on the line, they would have actually answered it.
No, it just went to voicemail.
Oh, did go to, okay. Well,
And
if you, we have a meeting tomorrow morning. It's a weekly recap. I'll make sure that it's noted.
Thanks. Yes.
I had the same experience with the calling them. Could we just get their like expected office hours when we have that meeting, please?
Well, there's a help desk number, so what I believe you were given probably was not the correct number to be calling, perhaps, but I'll make sure, find out. Thanks.
Yes.
Is there like a PDF? We can just follow some instructions. I mean, I signed up for other things and it just tells you, you have to type in that and then you put in your password and stuff. Should it be?
Yeah, they have to work with each user and get your passwords set up. So, yeah, I mean, it would be nice to do that, but once you use your username and password, which will be your email account and a password, you'll get into Office 365 and just use Outlook. We only have Outlook. We do not have any of the other Office applications.
And I think Mr. Bayoki said he would get some information out to you tomorrow after the meeting. So anything else on that? Okay. Council ordinances, bylaws. Just a little background for new people here. We have a rec board. We do not have an arts and culture board, advisory board, and the decision was made to add one. In the process of trying to design the ordinance and the bylaws for it, it became pretty apparent that over the years, we've created different ordinances for all of our different advisory committees, and they are not like each other at all. They A and B and W, and some had bylaws, some did not, some were incomplete. So with pretty much everyone's input, slowly but surely, we put together wording for new ordinances for all of them, wording for new bylaws for all of them. There's nothing to talk about tonight. It's all with the solicitor. Once he goes through them and goes through everything, makes sure it's kosher, then you'll all get some serious reading, because I think there's, I don't know how many documents, and these are really fascinating things to go through. So that's just to let you know, so you don't need to buy any Ambien. C, Bury Emergency Management, with the, I guess the water main break recently, there were a lot of, I guess, a little confusion about the process of that. What I just wanted to bring up tonight, again, we're not going to work through this, but perhaps, I think, Mr. Mayor, I think you were the one who brought up the idea of these providing water for people the last time we had a big break.
Sorry, what was the question? I didn't quite hear.
Well, never mind, nothing. Nothing.
No, so yeah, we had like a once every, I can't remember the last time we had this many water breaks in the community. It was weather driven, right? And then if I believe I'm not mistaken, when I believe several other communities surrounding the borough also incurred these breaks. And so basically it was a manpower. We had one, I think, area in Forest Hills that was without water. We have an emergency services coordinator. Got in contact with him. He actually called around, got us some donated water.
Yeah.
That was it. We just basically put out an advertisement on Savvy and on our social medias and them.
And I think I was suggesting perhaps at some point we might want to sit and talk with Mr. Morris or have him see if we have all the process documented, so that, because this has only happened once or twice so far, whether we should, because I know some of the office staff wasn't sure how to handle things.
Yeah, so there's that. And then on top of it, I think we have to be very careful. Like some people were throwing around, that was not an emergency. Right? Declaring a state of emergency in the borough, essentially just all that does is essentially empower us to make decisions and go purchase stuff without having to actually put it through a vetting process, get bids, et cetera. So we want to be very careful about that. Typically, when we declare a state of emergency, we're doing that enforcement coming back our way, either through the state or the feds, right? So we have to be kind of strategic about throwing that term out. It's more about just working the process. Maybe we should have something that is kind of just flow charted out
Just, I was sort of
Because I think it
wondering,
was further compounded, the confusion was further compounded because our manager happened to be off that day.
yeah,
And I think that the people in the office weren't quite sure, and they were inundated with calls from residents. And then, members of council, myself, all checking in to see what was going on.
that's what I was sort of wondering if we could address that
Yeah,
because,
I mean, I think I can work with Keith more.
yeah.
Just flow chart that out. I would be willing to bet he probably has it.
It may already exist and we're just chasing, but it's worth looking into.
Yep.
Yes. No, we're not proposing it is. Yeah, we're not. It's just an internal process. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't proposing it was emergency. It's more like the mayor said it'd be nice to flow chart this out because we did have a little confusion within the borough and that's not fair to our staff.
And by
That's
the
all.
way, Wilkins's water disbursement was basically they made the spigot in their public works garage available to residents.
Yes,
Come in
Mr.
with a
Engler.
thing and fill it out.
Can I make a comment, please? I agree, it wasn't an emergency, but what we learned is communication with Wilkinsburg Penn Joint Water Authority sucks. They never talk to us. The updates on their website was like 2 or 3 days old. So I still think there's an action item for us to talk to our board member. I don't think she was involved at all in that stuff. Like, yes, and exactly. I think we need to improve the communication. Yes. At least if we would be able to update our citizen on survey, look, they know about it and we were going to fix it in a day or two. The communication was totally broken down. And I think that should be an action item for us to get something to improve.
Okay. Well, let's put that as an action item follow up for the next ops and policies in March, I guess. We need to, Tree City Times, Mr. Bayoki, do you have anything to
Yeah.
throw in there? at this
Okay,
point?
so this next item, we've been talking about the Tree City Times doing a digital version of it. And before we can get to that point, although we have looking at a couple of different options, we need to have an opt-in sign up on the website for collecting emails when we finally go live with this. So what I would like to do is request approval to or get into an agreement with MailChimp to set up an account. There'll be a monthly charge for that, so that we can begin that process.
Does the new IT group not have any capacity to host that kind of mail marketing?
Well, they're not, that's not what they do. I mean, they're
Yeah,
primarily
just
for
hosting.
support, yeah. Mr.
Yes,
Yes,
approximately what would that monthly charge be?
it's a good question. Depends on how many subscribers we have. So we're limited. We're probably gonna have less than 3,000 based on the households that we have. So I don't recall. It's been a while since I looked at that. It's not very significant, the cost. It depends on how many mailings you do per month. And we would be limiting that to probably one or two mailings at the most.
The premium plan's $350 a month if you need.
Yeah. Three, not 350.
Considering what we spent on that print process.
Yeah.
That's,
Now, would this replace print?
what, sorry, did you
Yes.
want to ask a
Is,
question?
is this going to replace print or?
Well, we have put in the Tree City Times a request for people to contact Cindy. Gotten two. So
I just worry about a lot of the seniors in our community that aren't.
we kind of thought that would be a problem before, but with Savvy Citizen, the same issue question came up and most people are pretty good. So.
Centurion comments.
Yeah, that might be the exception, but there's a lot of seniors that are doing quite well with their phones and their internet and their banking and what have you. So
We are still addressing, trying to solicit how many people really would want to.
Just, excuse me.
Good question.
Just so that the public could know, approximately what were we spending on Tree City Times for the paper edition?
What is 20,000? Tree City Times in addition, what is it? How much should we spend?
I thought it was
1,000.
25,000.
It's around
For the
20,000.
year, 20 to 25,000
For the year.
Yeah.
for the year. So that's $1,800 to $2,000 a month compared to $350.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should consider that.
So, okay, thanks.
Put a motion on to authorize you to use MailChimp, is that?
Yes.
You good? I did want to talk about the role of committee chairs, but we are having an executive session to discuss committees at the end of next Tuesday's meeting, is that correct? So I'll withdraw that until later. Anything else on this committee before we're done? Okay, we're done, sir.
All the